What's going on, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of UGA's Draft League. Last week we managed to survive Jaden's team and his crazy Rain Core along with Metagross, with a little extra help from Screen's Sigilith. This week we're going to be fighting KJ Chicken and his Prankster-packed team. He's got 3 Prankster Mons, being Tornadus, Grimmsnarl, and Riolu. He's also got a lot of different setup options, so we'll take a look at that right now. So, as I mentioned, he has a couple different options. The main thing that jumps out to me is the Grimmsnarl Thundurus Riolu core. This stands out to me because I've actually drafted a very similar core with Grimmsnarl and Thundurus, and it can be really potent because you don't know what to expect. I would often lead Grimmsnarl and Thundurus at the same time, and your opponent would be left wondering which one is the Prankster Mon and which one is the offensive Mon. If it's Grimmsnarl, you can have Swagger Thundurus into a Lumberry Grimmsnarl and get some really big damage off pretty quickly. You can also go the other way around, where you have Screen's Grimmsnarl with offensive Thundurus, Thundurus usually is not as bulky, so it can really benefit from the Screen's Grimmsnarl can bring. They both offer speed support, with Thundurus's T-Wave and Grimmsnarl's Scary Face. So just the combination alone, there's just so much variance between the two. In addition to the Prankster core, he also has Riolu, which can deal some bullet punch to proc a weakness policy onto Grimmsnarl. And Grimmsnarl has the pickpocket ability, so not only can it get a weakness policy boost, but it can also take something like a Life Orb or a Lumberry from Riolu to really make it really potent. He also has Pheromosa, which has a lot of different speed support options. It does get Icy Wind, so it can slow down different opponents. It can also speed swap into something like the Dragalge and have that be an offensive threat. In addition, it's also hits extremely strong, both physical and specially. So we're expecting probably a Focus Sash on it, or maybe even a Choice Band if he's going for Choice Band U-turns. Pheromosa does outspeed everything on my team, so I could see him wanting to bring it in, do some big damage, and getting out before he gets hit. He's also got a Trick Room mode with Jellicent. Jellicent is another Mon that can benefit from Pheromosa's speed swap, where it has like Specs Water Spout to do good damage, and Greedent for Belly Drum and other like citrus berry things. It could do like Belly Drum into a Custap Berry. It could be faster than everything. There's a lot of different options, and I think that's what scares me the most about this team. Kling can also set up Trick Room in case it wants to be like an offensive Trick Room setter, and he's got Mr. Mime for Follow Me support. Altaria also has Cloud9 and Tailwind, but I don't really see it coming that much, so I'm not too worried about it. As far as what I want to bring, I know that Entei is very important. I also think that a beat-up core with Terrakion and Persian could be very, very strong. His team isn't as well prepared for the beat-up strats as the last 2 teams we've seen. I think Grimmsnarl is going to be... I think Rillaboom is going to be very good into Mons like Grimmsnarl, being able to outspeed it, get some damage off before it can set screens, things like that. It can also deny Trick Room from Jellicent. Another Mon that I want to bring is Entei. It's good damage into his entire team with Sacred Fire, possibly getting burns on some things like the Grimmsnarl or the Thundurus. Rapidash, I think, is going to be very important. It does pretty good damage into everything except for the Dragalge, which I have some plans for. And finally, I have a last spot open that I wasn't too sure what to put in. I could bring Screen Sigilith again, but it doesn't have a great matchup, so I decided to run Jolteon. So let's look at the team I built for KJ. Hello? Alright, so starting off with Rillaboom, I decided to give it the classic Miracle Seed, do some good damage into pretty much everything. Pheromosa does resist Grassy Glide, but it's still taking, I believe, like 80%, which after like a Fake Out or another priority move should be a KO onto it. We've also got Fake Out to fake out possibly the Pheromosa in case it wants to go for Speed Swap or anything else. Maybe the Kling Kling if it's going for a Trick Room. Grimmsnarl if it's going for screens. It's just a Fake Out's going to be really important overall. We've also got Terrakion. It says Stone Edge on here, but I actually decided to run Rock Slide. So just a mental note there. I have this outspeeding everything underneath Thundurus. So it's pretty slow actually, but it's pretty bulky. The reason I decided to do this is because it's paired with this Persian. Persian is also slower than Thundurus, but I decided to run Icy Wind on it. Even if we decide to proc the Defiant on Thundurus after the Icy Wind, it will still be faster and we'll be able to KO it anyway. Like always, it has Beat Up in case Terrakion has an opportunity to get set up. It has Protect in case the opponent has Fake Out off of Kecleon. We don't want Persian's Sash getting broken before it has time to do anything. Since his team's pretty physical, I decided to run just max defense. Its Fur Coat ability is going to really compound with that to make it really hard to remove. And Icy Wind is just going to be very annoying. Terrakion also has the Coaching move. We don't need too much coverage against this team, so I just decided to run Coaching into possibly Entei or Rillaboom or Rapidash, kind of like what we did week 1. It also has Chople. With Chople, it'll let me live any close combat from Pheromosa, and I'll be able to KO it in return with Rock Slide. Next two we have is Entei with Life Orb. I decided to run Life Orb because I think the extra damage is going to go a long way, especially with like extreme speed, because his team can be fast depending on how he sets it up. And Sacred Fire is just strong all around. Entei doesn't need much health, but it just needs to do pretty big damage, and hopefully we'll get a burn on some things that could be dangerous. I also decided to use Snarl. It's walled. My team has a hard time dealing with Dragalge, and that's probably one of the leads I'm worried about the most is a speed swap Pheromosa into the Dragalge, and Dragalge starts setting up with its Max Ooze. So to help offset that, I decided to run Snarl. We've also got Jolteon. I was going to run Choice Scarf on Jolteon to maybe get a fast Yawn off on Thundurus, since it can't touch its own electric terrain, so Yawn is actually pretty good into it. I could also Charm a Grimmsnarl or anything else that's physical, like a Pheromosa. So instead of running the Choice Scarf, I decided to run the Flame Orb. I still get the 0.5 times boost, but it lets me switch around my moves. It's a little memey, but we'll see if it actually gets brought. I think the only time this would get brought is if something is really getting out of hand. It does wall the Thundurus decently well with its 108 HP and 252 defense. So we'll see if Jolteon does its work. Finally, we've got Rapidash Galar. I decided to run Keblia Berry for the Dragalge. Again, I think that Dragalge is a pretty big problem. I've also got Balance, Play Rough, and High Horsepower. High Horsepower will help me against the Dragalge. It'll boost my special defense as it raises its special attack, and it's super effective damage into it. I think Rapidash could be pretty good in this battle. I have it has good coverage against everything, and getting a Bax Airstream off into like a Pheromosa or something I think will be very helpful. Pheromosa can't do too much into it. It can go for bug type attacks for neutral, but that's about the extent of what it can do into the Rapidash. Alright, with that, let's get into the first match. So getting into the first match, we can see that he didn't bring the Riolu or the Grimmsnarl, so we don't have to worry about any Inner Focus, Bullet Punch, Weakness Policy, strats, or anything like that. He does have the Mr. Mime, which is a little worrying because I'm going to try to do a beat-up strategy here. I think his team is kind of susceptible to it, so I'd like to try to go for it. If I see a Mr. Mime, I'll probably end up switching out the Persian into a Rapidash and going for a Coaching. I kind of thought about this already. I'm also kind of worried about Jellicent setting up Trick Room, so I already had these 4 kind of in mind to pick, so I can lock it in pretty fast. It's just deciding if I see anything that would deter me from going for those 4. I am a little Dragougy weak, but I feel like Terrakion should be able to do some good damage into it. And with that, we lock in and we go right into the first match. Good luck to KJ. I know he was a little nervous going into this match, but I think his team is really strong, and I'm really excited to see what he brought. So he decides to lead with Pheromosa and Zarina. So I know I want to try to go for beat up here. I could go for a fake out, possibly breaking a sash onto Pheromosa. Zarina can also high jump kick into either of my Mons. If they both go into Persian, then it will pick up a KO if Pheromosa close combats and Zarina high jump kicks. So that's something to think about. I decided to go for an Icy Wind here. I know that I will be faster than the Pheromosa unless it's Scarf, which I think could be a possibility since we haven't seen an item. So I'll go for the Icy Wind. It will break a sash onto Pheromosa and slow it down so we can be faster than it next turn. Zarina decides to Helping Hand though, which is really interesting because if he had Helping Hand into my close combat into my Terrakion, it would have picked up a KO even through the Choppleberry. So it was really nice to see that Terrakion denied that with a Protect. We break a possible sash onto Pheromosa and drop both of its speeds. Again, we will be faster than Pheromosa this following turn unless it's Scarf, so I decide to just assume, hey, it's probably not Scarf. If it is, okay, I can bring in Rapidash the following turn and get basically a free kill onto something. And so I'll go for the beat up, and I decide to just Rock Slide. It should do enough onto Zarina after the beat up. We do get the beat up off successfully for the first time this season, which is pretty exciting, and we started off with a crit, which is pretty funny. Not like it's going to matter too much, but it's just pretty ironic. And we get to see this long animation of Terrakion's attack getting raised 4 times. Now that I have beat up set up, I'm a little worried about the Dragougy still, but with Pheromosa being gone, if we connect, we should be okay. It shouldn't, we won't have to worry about it speed swapping into the Dragougy. And finally get Rock Slide off. It does connect it to both. Zarina does live on a sliver, but it should be enough to pick up a KO the next time. I actually kind of like this. If he had gotten a double switch, I think it would have been a little bit scarier. Now we're not too sure what Zarina's going to go for here. We know it is slower than us because it was Icy Winded, and we do confirm that. So here I can pick up a KO onto Zarina with Persian, leaving me to be able to pick up a KO onto Dragougy possibly. I could Max Quake here, that would for sure pick up the kill, but I am worried that he has Terrakion, or excuse me, he has Thunderous in the back, where if I Max Quaked into the Dragougy, which is the obvious play, and he switched, I would get nothing out of the turn. Instead, I decide to Max Rockfall. It'll give me the Spadef boost anyway. It'll set up Sand for a little bit of chip on stuff, and it's just all around safer. It's not going to do as much damage, but I mean, we're +4. It's going to do good damage anyway, and stab. he decides to max his Dragalge, which is a little scary, but it's better to get it out while I'm +4 than later on. Serena does Helping Hand, which is a little worrying if Dragalge manages to live, because we still haven't seen the Sash, then it could do some pretty good damage into us. We do go for a Rock Fall after Serena picks up the KO onto Persian. And it does pick up the KO. Now this was a crit, but unless he was very, very physically bulky, it would have always killed. I calc that max HP does a minimum of 104. So hopefully, I mean, he could have been 252 defense for sure. In that case, I apologize. Had he lived and picked up the KO onto Terrakion, it would have been a very different endgame. It would have probably been us Icy Winding with Persian into the last two, which would have been Thunderous, Dragalge. That probably would have picked up the KO with just Icy Wind, but if it didn't, I had Rapidash to come in and play rough into the Thunderous for pretty good damage. We are just going to Icy Wind. I want to make sure that we're slower than the Thunderous the next turn anyway, even though it is going to give him the attack boost. He will get the Defiant, so we know he's not Prankster at this point, which is good to know. And Rockfall will come out and pick up the KO. Even if he had Protect there, I feel like it still would have probably KO'd. Thunderous is not very bulky, especially when it's not max. Alright, and with that, we 4-0 the first game. Pretty good start. So going into game 2, I'm expecting that he will have something else for the beat-up strategy, but it worked so well, I'm going to try it again this time. He didn't bring any Trick Room modes with Gelessent, so for that reason, I feel like Rillaboom should stay on the bench this time. It doesn't do any damage into Terrakion, or excuse me, he does into Thunderous or Dragalge. So Entei is definitely the better pick for those two. So I decided to go for the same 4 minus Rillaboom, and we'll see how this game goes. I'm expecting either a Mr. Mime to come out this time for a Follow Me redirection, or some kind of Fake Out, or excuse me, he doesn't have Fake Out, I would have only gone with Terrakion. Second one? Does he have Fake Out? He might not even have Fake Out. Can't remember. He decides to go Pheromosa Thunderous this time, so this was a pretty good adjustment on his part. I know that by Icy Wind he'll get the boost. Or I could Fake Out into the Pheromosa. We still don't know if it's Sash or what its item is. Could Protect again. He probably would expect it, but I think it would be pretty safe. This is a slight misplay, as you'll see. He decides to max his Thunderous. Yep. The Pheromosa here can go for a close combat onto Persian. Because I'm so bulky, it won't pick up a KO or even bring me the Sash, but it will do some pretty good damage anyway. So we are going to protect their Terrakion just in case, and hopefully he goes for the U-turn onto Persian. I'm wondering if this is Choice Band, because that does a lot of damage, and he did not protect. Yeah, he didn't show any other moves the first game. He only close combated. Serena can come out here, so again, I can't go for priority moves now, and he does have help cancel. Thunderous decides to Air Scream, which is very unfortunate because now the Icy Wind is going to come out and he's still going to be faster than me. So I really didn't think that very well. This was definitely a misplay. To cover for that, I could have Max Terrakion. It would have taken like 50% maybe. Yeah, that sounds about right. No, it would have been twice as much as it has right now. Yeah, about a little under 50%. And Rockfall into Thunderous. This probably would have picked up the KO even without the beat up boost, or it would have been enough where I would have been sure to kill the next turn. Now I'm a little late to the game. I could try Rockfalling now, hoping that he targets into Terrakion again, trying to get rid of it. If he doesn't, then I can beat up into Terrakion. I just consider swapping into Entei Raw, but I'm worried that if he targets the Persian, Entei is going to take unnecessary damage, and Persian really doesn't do anything in the back. So I'd rather just let a Persian go down if that's the case, or get a beat up off. I Airstream and Rock Slide into both the mons. I decided to save my max for the back. If it is Gougy in the back, I really would like something else to be the Maximon. And besides, I can stall out the turn a little bit better this way. Serena is going to pick up a KO with the Grassy Glide. Cool tech. If I had brought Rillaboom, I would have been kind of forced to max it if I wanted to do any kind of damage into Jellicent, because I only have Grassy Glide. Something I thought about before, but I was okay with it. I figured if he's bringing Jellicent, I probably would want to max it anyway. So I get to bring out both my Mons in the same turn now, which is quite nice. Both at full HP. I know that here Thunderous only has one more turn of max, and Serena doesn't do much damage into either of them. So I decide to, I'll make a read, but I decide to take a little bit more of a offensive stance, and I decide to protect Entei because he probably will underestimate the Rapidash and max Rapidash and Airstream into Serena. This will let us outspeed anything in the back, like the Pheromosa. With this too, I can, once his max is gone, then I should be able to pick up a KO with Extreme Speed, and the Serena should go down plus its Cobble Berry to the bounce, the max Airstream. Oh, the other thing I noticed when I maxed Rapidash, because this is the first time I've had it out this set, is that I brought the wrong set again on Rapidash. It's supposed to have high horsepower and protect, instead it has Prison Trick. So I couldn't protect Rapidash even if I wanted to. I had to max it if I wanted to go for a protect. This is really unfortunate, as you'll see in a minute, because I don't have high horsepower, so he probably has Dragouchi in the back, and I won't be able to have to do any damage into it. And if he had probably saved his Dragouchi, I think I would have lost 1v1, because I didn't have any kind of ground smooth like I was relying on. So Serena does go down, and he targets into the Entei, which doesn't do too much damage. His max is gone now, so I know that an Extreme Speed will pick up a KO onto Thunderous. Again, Thunderous not very bulky, so bring it in pretty safely, pick up a KO. It only has under 25% left. Pheromosa is out now. Again, we still have not seen its item, and it does have full HP, so we can assume that it's probably sashed, but I'm okay with that. If Entei goes down, I will get, I can Airstream into Rapidash, or into Pheromosa again, and pick up another KO. I decide to double into Thunderous, just in case. So even if he protects here, I want the Thunderous gone because it is so fast. He doesn't protect, so the Thunderous goes down to a Extreme Speed. I don't think that crit mattered. I mean, Entei was Life Orbs, so it's going to do pretty good damage anyway. KJ said one of the crits mattered. I'm not sure which one it was, if it was that one. If anything, I think the one that mattered the most was the Icy Wind onto Thunderous, because it got me just enough chip damage where I think it did put a range of Extreme Speed. Pheromosa turns out not to be Sash, so I'm guessing it was a choiced item. Must have been choice banded. Dragalge is his last mon. Again, this is scary because even though I have a max left and some snarls and stuff, I really don't have good damage to Dragalge. Since it is a trick room mod, it can be a little bit bulkier since it doesn't have to run speed. I'm just gonna airstream into it. It's the best neutral damage I've got, even though it's not stab or anything. Well, I guess that's not true. I should have Starfall there for sure. There's no reason not to. But I go for an airstream anyway. At this point, I was not really thinking about things. And he decides to Sludge Bomb into the Rapidash. Not surprising, its adaptability is going to make this really hurt. Even with the Kevia Berry, or even without the Kevia Berry, I would have survived that, but without Max and without Kevia, it would have just straight OHKO'd me. So that's good to know. I can Snarl here, possibly getting a little bit of, or I could Snarl and try to weaken it, but I think at this point I really would rather just get damage off into it. It's probably 2-hit KO'd by Extreme Speed anyway, so I can only KO one of my mons. Now this is a little bit scary because if he predicts the bounce and targets into Entei, he can actually win off of a bounce miss. Bounce is not super accurate, I believe it's 85% accurate, so he has a 15% chance to win right here if he targets into the Entei. Unfortunately, he targets into the Rapidash. Not too, again, I think I kept thinking that Dragalge is just straight poison type, so I wasn't going for a Clay Rough. Yeah, that was definitely a misplay on my part. I usually play these battles early in the morning, so my mind is still waking up sometimes. But Entei does hold on with 2 HP, and we win this set. Props to KJ. I thought he had a really good team. The Pheromosa being banded is super scary. I was not expecting that, and he would have done some really big damage if I had misplayed any time. Probably picking up KOs left and right onto anything that got in its way. So with that, we go into week 4 undefeated. Pretty surprising. I really wanted to go into this league at least being might as well switch this. So with that, we go into week 4 being undefeated. Pretty surprising. I wanted to go into this league at least neutral, like 4 wins, 4 losses. But it's nice to see that we're 3-0 right now. I feel like the team is performing really well. Over the next week, I need to start considering if I want to make any trades, because trades will open the 5th week, which is a break week. But right now, it seems like everybody's doing their job, even though we haven't brought Copperaja or Stoutland yet, and we haven't used Jolteon in battle yet. I feel like they're still pretty important parts, but over the next week, I'll kind of think about it and see if we want to switch anything up. Next week, we'll be fighting the Texas Tornadoes, and maybe we'll keep our win streak alive and go 4-0 before the break. All right, guys, thank you for watching. See you next week.